The dead-end road wasn't on her delivery slip. That was the first thing that felt wrong. The second was the quiet. It was July 4th, 1982, Salem, Oregon. A night for fireworks, for laughter cracking over backyards. But on this lonely stretch, the only sound was the low, steady hum of a car engine. The driver's side door of the small sedan was wide open, as if someone had just stepped out for a moment. The interior light cast a weak yellow glow on empty seats. A half-eaten package of breath mints sat in the cup holder. A Domino's pizza delivery tote, still warm, was on the passenger seat. But there was no pizza inside it. And there was no sign of Shia Yearly. The 18-year-old had left the store for a delivery, a call that would later be traced to a payphone, a fake order. She'd driven her own car, a common practice then. She'd driven right into a trap. Her car, found idling on that dead-end road, was a perfect, terrible snapshot of interrupted life. She was simply gone. The investigation churned, but leads dissolved like smoke. Years piled upon years, the painful weight of not knowing settling over her family. Then, a voice from the darkness. Not a clue, but a confession. William Scott Smith, a serial killer drifting across the American landscape, spoke her name from a Texas prison. He claimed he had murdered Shia Yearly. He provided details, he drew maps. He said he had strangled her and left her body in a remote wooded area near Salem. Detectives from Oregon flew to Texas, their hopes a fragile, grim thing. They walked with him through the places he indicated. They scoured the earth. They found nothing. No remains, no conclusive evidence to physically tie his story to the ground. Was it the truth, or the cruel boasting of a man already serving multiple life sentences, seeking notoriety or a twisted sense of completion? Without a body, without forensic proof, his confession became another layer of the mystery, not its solution. Shia Yearly's case remains open, suspended between a phantom's claim and an absolute, enduring silence. Her family is left with a confession that feels like a ghost, haunting them with a possible answer that can never be fully verified. A story that may be just another kind of violence. The day after Christmas should feel like a soft sigh, a time to curl up with the quiet aftermath of celebration. For Debbie Wolf, a 28-year-old nurse in Fayetteville, North Carolina, December 26, 1985, was the end of everything. She had spent the holiday with family and returned to her secluded cabin. The next day, she was reported missing. A search began, frantic and fearful. It ended in a small, ice-edged pond not far from her home. There, beneath the surface, they found Debbie. The immediate ruling by authorities was accidental drowning. A tragic mishap. A slip on the bank, perhaps, a fatal misstep in the winter dark. But the details surrounding her death refused to align with that simple, sorrowful conclusion. For those who knew her, and for investigators who looked closer, the scene whispered of something far more sinister. Debbie Wolf was fully clothed, including her shoes. In her pocket was a set of car keys. Her vehicle was found parked neatly at her cabin. There were no signs of a struggle at the water's edge, no broken branches or disturbed earth to suggest a frantic fall. More chillingly, there were reports of suspicious individuals lurking near her property around the time she vanished. A man had been seen, a stranger who didn't belong. The pond itself was shallow. The notion that a capable, sober adult could accidentally drown there, without crying out, without leaving any mark of panic, strained credibility. Her family pleaded for the case to be re-examined as a homicide. They spoke of her cautious nature, of her bright future. The official designation, however, remained unchanged: accidental death. The case was closed. But a closed file does not stop the questions, does not silence the dissonance. The shadow over that small pond lingers. Was it a tragic accident, a confluence of terrible, random chance? Or was it a carefully staged murder, a crime disguised by the indifferent water? The official record holds one answer. The weight of the unanswered details suggests another. Debbie Wolf's death is a story told in two conflicting languages, and the truth lies submerged in the space between them. The noise of the fairgrounds faded behind her, replaced by the hush of a late September night. 14-year-old Misty Copsey had missed her bus. It was 1992. The Puyallup Fair in Spanaway, Washington, had drawn thousands, and now the teenager was stranded. She made a decision. She would hitchhike. It was a different time, a gamble teenage girls sometimes took, believing in the basic decency of strangers. That belief, on that night, was fatally misplaced. Misty was never seen again. In the first critical hours, a label was applied, one that would handicap the investigation from the start: runaway. She was a teenager from a complicated home life. The assumption was that she had left by choice. That assumption was a poison, slowing the urgency, diluting the resources. By the time authorities truly accepted she was a victim, the trail was stone cold. Years later, a gruesome discovery. Articles of clothing identified as Misty's were found in a wooded area near the fairgrounds. They were not scattered by animals or weather. They were folded, neatly, deliberately placed. It was a detail that chilled the blood, a gesture that spoke of calculation, of a grim ritual. It reframed everything. This was not a runaway who had met with misadventure. This was predation. The folded clothes were a message, a signature of control. Yet, despite this haunting clue, forensic science at the time yielded nothing. No DNA, no fingerprints, no threads of evidence leading to a specific individual. The case became a maze of dead ends and whispers. There were suspects, a local man with a violent history, a serial offender operating in the region, but nothing concrete, nothing that could hold in a court of law. Misty Copsey vanished into the twilight of a roadside, her case initially misunderstood, then tragically stalled. The folded clothes remain, a silent, elegant testament to a horror that has, so far, outlasted justice. He was just a face, a sketch based on the memories of those who'd shared the road with him for a few brief hours. A young man, maybe in his late teens or early 20s, with long, sandy hair. He wore a tie-dyed t-shirt bearing the iconic skeleton of the Grateful Dead. In July of 1995, in rural Virginia, he was a passenger in a car that veered off the highway and crashed. The driver survived. The young man in the Grateful Dead shirt did not. He had no identification. His fingerprints matched no records. His dental records circled back to nothing. He was a complete mystery. He was entered into the national databases as a John Doe. But to the detectives and the coroner who handled his case, and later to an online community that would become obsessed, he was given a different name: Grateful Doe. For 20 years, he slept in a pauper's grave, unidentified. His case was a quiet, persistent ache in the system, a life that had ended without a story. But the internet began to weave a new kind of network. On forums and message boards dedicated to the unidentified, Grateful Doe's sketch and his story took hold. People shared the image far and wide. They combed through missing persons reports from the mid-90s, looking for a young man who loved music, who might have been following the Dead on tour. It was a massive, decentralized, digital effort. A possible name emerged: Jason Patrick Callahan. He had vanished from Florida around the right time. He was a Grateful Dead fan. The online sleuths presented their findings to authorities. A DNA comparison was made. In 2015, 2 decades after that Virginia crash, science and collective human curiosity finally gave him back his name. He was Jason, 19 years old, who had left home for an adventure and never returned. His family had been waiting, wondering, for all those years. The mystery of Grateful Doe was solved not by a sudden break in a police investigation, but by the dogged, compassionate persistence of strangers online. It is a story that highlights both the profound loneliness of dying unknown and the remarkable power of communal memory. Jason was finally brought home, his story closed not with a criminal's conviction, but with the simple, solemn dignity of a name. The picnic blanket was a bright island in the green sea of the Helena National Forest. It was June 1983, and the Marshall family was enjoying a sunny day in the Elkhorn Mountains of Montana. 4-year-old Nylene K. Marshall, known as Eileen, was playing nearby with other children. One moment she was there, a small figure in the dappled light. The next, she was gone. The search was immediate and massive. Hundreds of volunteers, law enforcement, and trackers scoured the rugged terrain. They found no trace. Not a shoe, not a scrap of her clothing. It was as if the earth had simply opened up and swallowed her. The theories were agonizing. A bear attack, a fall into a hidden ravine, a swift, tragic accident in the wilderness. But then, the letters began. Months after Nylene vanished, a man began calling a national missing children's hotline. He claimed to have taken her. He said he was raising her as his own. He provided details about the picnic that had never been made public. He knew what she was wearing. The calls were followed by letters, written in a precise, chilling hand. He spoke of her in possessive, unsettling terms. He gave her a new name. He claimed they were moving to Mexico, then to Wisconsin. He wrote about taking her to movies, about her growing up. The correspondence spanned years, taunting and terrifying her parents. Was this the genuine kidnapper, a sadist tormenting a grieving family? Or was it a particularly cruel hoaxer, feeding on their pain? The handwriting was analyzed, the phone calls traced as far as technology allowed. A suspect emerged, a man with a history of inappropriate behavior with children, but nothing could be definitively proven. No arrest was ever made. The letters and calls eventually stopped, leaving behind a silence even more profound than the one that followed her disappearance. The case of Nylene Marshall exists in a nightmare realm between two possibilities. The first is a tragedy of the wild, a little girl lost to the immense, indifferent mountains. The second is a more intimate, prolonged horror, a life stolen and reshaped by a stranger, her identity erased, her family left to imagine a ghost growing up in the hands of a monster. Without a body, without a definitive resolution, both stories persist. The truth about what happened to Nylene on that bright June day is locked in the past, a secret kept either by the silent forest or by a man who may have written his confession in letters that were both a confession and a lie. Her case is a wound that never healed, because it was never allowed to close. 5 cases, each a universe of anguish frozen in time. She a yearly, her absence confirmed by a running car and a killer's unverifiable words. Debbie Wolfe, a death ruled an accident that wears the unsettling shape of a murder. Misty Copsey, a teenager whose fate was sealed by a folded stack of clothing in the woods. Jason Callahan, a young man who lost his name to a highway and found it again through the kindness of strangers. Nylene Marshall, a little girl who vanished into either the wilderness or a narrative of terrifying possession. These are the fractures in the world, the moments where the story stopped but the suffering did not. They are reminders that some mysteries resist all our tools, all our logic, all our desperate need for an ending. They persist, not as files in a cabinet, but as echoes. A family hears a car engine idling on a quiet road and remembers. A detective looks at a shallow pond and wonders. A parent, decades later, still thinks about a folded pile of clothes. A simple gravestone finally gets a name. A mailbox remains empty, forever waiting for a letter that brings no comfort. The cold never really thaws. It just settles in, a permanent winter of the facts.